This is Lo-Fi, an award-winning VR role-playing game that takes place in a retro-futuristic cyberpunk ghetto, where you're the sheriff of City Block 303. Lo-Fi is launching in 2023 for PC, PlayStation 5, and PlayStation VR 2. Lo-Fi was developed solely by one badass indie game developer, Blair Renaud. Blair's a veteran game dev that's worked for Rockstar Games and has been focused only in VR games for the last decade. Blair's developed VR games for Samsung, Oculus, Sony, and Google. I interviewed him 7 years ago when Facebook had just acquired Oculus. And 7 years later, with the recent announcements of Apple's new XR dev kit, the Apple Vision Pro, we talked about the pros and cons for developing on different VR headsets and what developers should expect from the Apple Vision Pro. Friends, here's Blair. Give an intro for yourself. I've known you for a while. You're one of the most seasoned XR developers. You've built on pretty much every platform: Samsung, Google, Oculus, Meta. Technolust was the best looking VR game, I still think, to date. I'm surprised that more people just don't talk about it. You used to work at Rockstar Games, home of Grand Theft Auto. Let's go ahead and introduce yourself to people who may not know you.
Okay. I mean, I think you just did it.
Yeah, is that pretty good? Was that okay?
What else to add to that?
Nice.
Yeah, I like the term seasoned. That's nice. It sounds like a delicious.
How about old? We're just old. We're now old.
So I like that one. I mean, it's probably true, but yeah. No, I think that's a good intro. I mean, there's a million podcasts out there of me explaining how I got into VR and what kind of led me to it. But I think you pretty much covered it. Yeah, we had a launch title for we meaning basically me, had a launch title for the Rift called Technolust, and then with the touch controllers when they came out, and now we're working on new stuff for PSVR 2, this bad boy here, and regular PlayStation 5, like flat, and PC VR, and yep. Actually, like about a half an hour before we got on, the Upload VR summer showcase ended, and we had a trailer in there kind of announcing some of the features and that it's available for wishlist on PS5.
For the audience who may be new to XR, kind of give your developer perspective on the general landscape of developing for the different platforms.
Developing for the different platforms is interesting. Like, I don't know, it's hard to not complain about the different problems with individual platforms, right? Like, Sony, working with them is kind of a nightmare on the back end, like just trying to figure out how to get anything done. Like if you have a question, they have a forum. Well, first of all, you need like a static IP address. It's like hacking into the Pentagon just to like log in to access any of Sony's backend stuff. And you have a question, you post it on the forum, because every answer to every forum question on there is like, please submit a private ticket. So there's no answers in the forum. It's just a nightmare. The documentation references other documentation, but doesn't actually link to any places where you need to go to get anything done. But like as far as development goes for Sony, it's great. It's easy. It's like, it's you get a special version of the engine and just export to PlayStation. I mean, you have to do some work with shaders and stuff like that, but it's pretty easy. The Quest and Meta, I've kind of given up on it. I don't like where that's going. I wanted VR to be the holodeck. Not that there's anything wrong with like Beat Saber and like arcadey kind of short experiences like that. Like I get it, I enjoy it, but it's not what I want from VR. So I'm kind of ignoring Quest, maybe to my like financial detriment, but I don't care. I got into this because I was excited about like the future of VR and what VR can be, and like the holodeck, and not money. There's a great Kanye quote. yes, I'm quoting Kanye. I don't I don't believe in anything Kanye says outside of this single quote. But he says it's about dopeness. He says dopeness is what I like the most. People who want to make things as dope as possible. Then by like being dope, you make money from it. What I like the least is people who want to make money regardless of whether things are dope or not, right? It's more important to make the thing as dope as possible. And then if it is, you'll make money from it, right? It's not. It doesn't work the other way around. It doesn't like it can work where it's like I want to make money. How do I make the money? But then it might not be dope.
Right.
Like,
And I think that's kind of the testament of your work. I mean, you've always said you're going to ship stuff when it's ready, and you kind of have a high bar for yourself. And also because you're independent, you don't have to actually answer to anyone.
like just during that upload showcase that aired a half an hour ago, I was reading the comments like a sadist. And there was this is the Star Citizen in VR, and like with 1/1 millionth the budget of Star Citizen. It doesn't
That's
say
right.
that. That's me saying that. And
Yeah.
1/900th the staff or whatever. But like I said, I have a vision for it. I want to be able to, like in a holodeck, nobody got frustrated and looked for a walkthrough. Nobody die on the holodeck. I'm trying to figure out how to engage people and have like an empowering fantasy experience, and give them awe and all the good stuff without it being cliche video game stuff. It doesn't have to be shooty man. It can be whatever. It doesn't have to be puzzly either. Like, okay, you have the holodeck. What are you doing? What are you going to do? Are you going to play Call of Duty? I mean, you might once in a while, but I don't think that's what people generally use it for, right? Like a lucid dream, It's it's another world you can explore. A deep open world RPG, but with less kind of game mechanics.
Yeah, I totally get now, kind of your style, considering that when we first met, you're mentioning how you got into VR, which you took the game that a lot of people have heard of, Papers, Please,
Mm.
and turned that into VR. And I thought that was interesting because you were also just kind of making a comment just in terms of government, society, and you have those themes running across from technolust to even lo-fi, of where power control can corrupt, right? So,
Mm.
is this something that you as an independent developer really feel strongly about? Are you trying to make commentary on that?
Not really. I wouldn't even say that that's the case. At the time, the Oculus had the best practices guide for VR that they were kind of working. Don't let the player move. No artificial locomotion. No, like, so I was trying to make something engaging that would fit into that structure. Once I built the window in, it was like a cyberpunk security desk, rather than the
Passport.
totalitarian
Yeah,
checkpoint.
right. Checkpoint. Yeah.
Um, the same kind of thing, like access control. Once I built a window in the city outside, I was like, you know what? Screw that. That I like about cyberpunk. Think about Blade Runner. It's more about humanity and our relationship with technology and our creations and being like gods. It's like magic. And I'm a huge fan of most of Ridley Scott's work.
Hmm.
I grew up in that era. I grew up in arcades and watching RoboCop and Blade Runner and cyberpunk things that were amazing. So it's more about that to me. I got some flack from the trailer because you're a sheriff in the game, and when you walk into the police station, there's ACAB is spray painted above the archway into the thing, and people think that it's a political message from me, and I'm like, no, that's what you see when you walk into a dystopian police station. It's got nothing to do with like how I feel or how you should feel. It's just realistic. I think the same thing goes with the kind of corruption and themes of that's just how things are. It's not my political perspective. I'm not trying to force anything down anyone's throat.
That's interesting. You're looking at the mechanics and then being able to tell that story, and what you can exploit with VR. So that's pretty cool. 7 years ago, when we first did the first episode of the VR report, you had made some predictions. One was how UGC, user generated content, was going to be huge. Rec Room, they paid out over $1 million to their developers. There's actually more rooms in Rec Room than there are apps on the iOS store. What do you think about user generated content today in XR, and what other predictions do you have?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if it was a prediction. I think it was just it felt obvious to me, having bought my DK1 with money I made from Second Life, that I only put, I put like a week's worth of work into Second Life. I didn't really play it, but I saw the potential of, especially with VR, like what else is a metaverse aside from, you know, people were saying that when the term metaverse started to get thrown around more, and when Meta changed their name, was like, well, Fortnite is the metaverse, right? Or like Roblox is the metaverse. And it's true. Like they're closer to the metaverse than, or like even VR chat or Rec Room. They're closer than whatever Meta's vision of the metaverse is. And I don't think, my prediction is that Meta is what's a nice term for shitting the bed? Uh,
I don't know if there's a nice term.
they don't have the right. They don't have the coolness. They don't. It's so hard to explain what the problem is, but it's obvious that they don't get it when you see what they're trying to do, right? With their user generated content, with Horizon Worlds or whatever. I don't know why Roblox works, but Horizon Worlds doesn't. I'm guessing it's more user based thing. I don't know. It's so hard to predict this stuff. Yeah, but an easy prediction is that Meta is not going to do it. They're not the ones, like Meta, the platform, Meta, the software developer, is not going to make the user generated content metaverse that we're all dreaming of. And that's obvious to anyone who's seen any of it. Like it's just fully memeable. It's like the most. it's as wrong as it can be, which is insane. Like even mainstream publications make fun of it. It's like the laughing stock of the tech world. And their stocks tank every time they mention it. It's ridiculous. So like, what is the positive side of that? Is that, I mean, it's going to just emerge the way it emerges, like who knows who it will be. I mean, I don't think as like sticky as things like VR chat and Rec Room are, I don't know that that's like scalable for mainstream adoption. I don't know that, like I don't know. We'll see what happens with the Vision Pro. I don't know what Rec Room is on the Vision Pro. I don't know how that works, so I know Apple usually supports PlayStation 5 controllers. Is that what they're doing? And like they do have hand tracking of a sort. So I don't know. I don't know but yeah, I think it'll get there organically through one of these third-party developers. So there's things that happen. It's like Walkabout Mini Golf is like the best VR meeting platform right now. It's the best place to have like a business meeting or like a catch up with friends, right? And like, who would have predicted that? But it makes sense when you think like, well, what do business people usually do? Not usually, but whatever. You go
Chopping
golf.
out cigars, playing golf. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like a couple of rounds of golf. It's super like laid back, but like so I think that's what's going to happen is something like a rec room or walkabout or whatever will be so sticky that there'll be some sort of like expansion upon it, like Rec Room is too kind of childlike, I think, for VR because I mean, we say that the age limit is 13 or whatever. I think Meta's pulled that back a little bit. My 10-year-old daughter has been in VR since she was 2. She and I don't see any problem with that. I think it's amazing. I think she's like, by the age of 2, she'd been to the bottom of the ocean and flew the Apollo 11 mission on my knee, where I was lucky if I got to go to the zoo once every couple of years. So, like, I think it's actually good for kids as opposed to, but it can be bad, of course, like anything, like what are they playing? I wouldn't want her anywhere near VR chat. I don't even really want her in Rec Room. She's not, if she's in Rec Room, everyone's muted. It's completely like, kid friendly. Uh, so yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure what the future holds. I mean, I believe that there will be a sort of a metaverse moment where this is where everyone hangs out, but maybe it's not strictly VR for a long time. Maybe it's more of like, maybe we get there via augmented reality and kind of like permanent tracked things in augmented reality in the world. Like if Apple starts selling real estate space in AR, maybe that's the metaverse all of a sudden. It's like, my house, I buy this chunk of geospace in AR, and everything within here is under my control. Like, that's user generated content basically, right? Like, I can say, this is my plot of land in, what do you call that? Augmented verse. It's not the metaverse, right? It's not fully VR. It's like, but you should be able to own that, right? So I think there you go. That's a prediction.
Yeah, I love that one.
Yeah, I think that's yeah, I never really thought of that before, but like that makes sense for them to do, right? Like, say you can buy this parcel of real space in augmented space and do with it what you will.
Yeah, there's some AR apps like Superworld. They're pretty interesting. They're mapping out the entire world with geodata, offering ways to monetize on virtual properties. And I think that is going to be a trend. I think what we don't understand is that everything physical in the real world will have some kind of digital twin or even a different identity, maybe several identities in the virtual world. So I think you're spot on there.
I guess that's technically a metaverse at that point, right? Yeah, like if it's, yeah, because everything's kind of
100%. Considering that you mentioned the Apple Vision Pro and that was recently announced, what do you think about their offering? Are you going to build for it? If not, why? And what do you want to learn as a developer?
But yeah, I think it's amazing. I think it's what we needed. The industry, I mean, as a whole, it's not, like I said, I don't think Meta's got it. I don't think that, like, I don't know what the problem is over there. I love a lot of the people. I love, obviously what they've done since the beginning. But that was mostly the OG era, the Palmer Luckey kind of like hacker, like VR is going to be a thing. Not the kind of whatever the Mark Zuckerberg version of that is. Like the uncool corporate version of it. But Apple can do it. It doesn't matter if it's uncool. If it's got the utility we need and kind of I think utility is the biggest thing. Like right now, a Quest, you put it on, you're blind. As soon as you put it on, you don't have access to anything anymore in the real world. You can't do anything except play Beat Saber or play whatever. I think if Apple can nail the user experience of you put it on, pass-through is on by default, my real world is here, my apps are here, like you won already. Like that's a huge win for the industry. That's moving things forward. That's where we should be by now. Like when you put your Quest 2 on, it should be passed through by default. The UX is garbage on that thing. It's like, I don't know why their software is so bad. I'm not an Apple person. I have a couple iPads. I've never owned an Apple phone. I love the iPad experience. I think, yeah, it's a huge win. I'm not building for it. It's not, like I said, my vision is sort of the holodeck, and whether I think something like the Vision Pro brings us closer to that kind of metaverse thing. And I'll be happy to create, if I can buy my parcel of land, if I can sell user generated content through that space. Yeah, I'd love to, but I'm not going to try and build I'm not going to try and start building a game for it right now, or until I know what it is, until I, get a good handle on it for, whatever. And I think in Canadian dollars, it's almost like $5,000. It's like, yeah,
Right.
it's ridiculous.
Have you tried the Quest Pro yet?
Yeah, I've got one right here. Yeah, it's okay. I mean, but like the hardware is fine. The hardware has been fine for a lot of these things for a while. It's the kind of the actual user experience is garbage. It's like I think Apple was smart getting rid of the controllers, by default. I mean, controllers are great for what I'm doing for playing a game, but as far as just sometimes you just want to put it on and do something, and that's impossible with the current generation of tech. There's so much friction, and it's all due to the software. It's not like hardware is fantastic. The pass-through isn't great, but it's fine. Like it works if there was something to do with it, but there's not. It's like there's some janky third-party software for virtual monitors and desktop stuff, but it's like I said, it's janky. It's not what Apple will make it, which is a nice, smooth, seamless experience, right? You put it on, everything's good to go, and I don't know if that's not what Meta's trying to do, but it doesn't seem like it is their focus, right? I don't know. I don't think they know what they're doing, which is the problem. I don't think they have a solid vision of what their next step is. I think there's a general vision of this kind of the metaverse and the next social platform or whatever, but I don't know. It's no iPhone right now, but I think Apple can make it the iPhone, so I'm down for it.
Yeah, I think a lot of people in the industry have the same feelings that you do. Apple doesn't release stuff until they can really hit the nail on the head for mass adoption. And how they do it, they invented the human interface guidelines that kind of set the rule for developers. Hey, this is how you should interact with technology. You should interact it with humans in mind, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think they're going to lead the charge around spatial computing with what Apple is doing. But I do kind of want to defend pass-through for Quest. I mean, I did launch that while I was at Meta. I mean, it was very difficult, and the software, it's also contingent also on the hardware. In terms of the array of cameras that were available on the Quest 2, were they powerful enough to give you that immersion that a player needs? That's always challenging. I think the Quest Pro, with the power and with the higher quality cameras, they do kind of hit the mark. You probably tried the pet demo, which I think was pretty cool. But in terms of going back to Apple, what do you think Apple needs to do right for that user experience? I mean, you did say onboarding, which I totally agree. Why can't you just put on the Quest and automatically have that kind of interaction in VR, or actually use pass-through in a meaningful way? Besides those points that would be very helpful to Apple, what else do you think Apple, from a developer perspective, just needs to nail?
I think I covered it. Yeah, you put it on. It's in pass-through mode, so you're not blindfolding your user right away. There's no I think that's really the main thing, is it should be seamless. It's like putting on glasses, right? You put on sunglasses, hey, everything's dimmer. It's not as bright. Put on the VR headset, oh, everything's cooler. There's more stuff. It's not less stuff. And just that the smoothness of the user experience it is something I think Apple can nail. I would love to see like permanently fixed AR stuff. Like they didn't really mention any of that in the whatever you call it, announcement. Like I want to be able to put a Netflix window over my kitchen sink, and every time I put on the headset, the Netflix window is at my kitchen sink. You know, like the Quest Pro, there's nothing even close to that. I can't even leave the room with it on in pass-through mode without it saying like, "Oh my God, you left the room." You know, like shutting me down. I'm like, yeah, is this AR pass-through or what? It's not.
Right.
It's like it is, but it's not. It's not. They're not using it for what it should be used for. They're just using it for, I don't know, like to set your Guardian boundary. That's all you really use it for, you know? It's like, or playing a game on your table or something. It's not. So yeah, UX, utility, I don't know what you call like permanently fixed
Spatial
AR
anchoring.
objects.
Yeah.
Yeah, spatial anchoring. There you go. And I think that's it. Like, what utility means, I don't know. Like, but if it's already got the default like Apple apps, you know, like whatever it is, FaceTime or like even if I can answer the phone, like I need to be able to do at least some of the things I can do on a phone, you know, which blows my mind that we're like 10 years in and we don't even have Facebook on
Yeah.
the Meta headsets, you know. It's like,
Right.
not that I want Facebook, but like, you know, like what is happening? Where like how come I can't do anything in your VR platform yet? So I think that's yeah, and we're like we have like a private Discord channel of like OGs called the VR Mafia. It started out as like Skype or whatever, and now it's moved to. But we've been talking about this stuff for ages. You know, it's like utility, UX. Like people were calling it friction before. It's like it's not so much friction. It's just like the overall everything. Like the UX is what causes the friction. You know, it's like you said, it needs to be human oriented. It needs to be like this stuff needs to be. They need to scrap the entire home system for Meta. Like I said, you put it on the pass-throughs there. I need anchoring. I need all of this stuff. I don't think any of that stuff's in the works. You know, you figure they would announce it. Instead, we get here's Mark Zuckerberg's new hideous avatar for Horizon Worlds. You know, so I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I think what you brought up a couple of interesting points. I think what was shown at WWDC, Apple is trying to come forward and say, hey, we're kind of reinventing on how people actually work productivity wise. It's a dev kit, first of all, but they're really focusing on like this infinite screen. You can have multiple screens within your environment. And if you're telling me you're going to actually incorporate new spatial computing type guidelines where they weren't even mentioning AI or even mention too much of VR or AR during their talk, I think this whole idea of spatial computing is interesting because when I was at the original Meta, the AR headset, that was something that I was really excited about. We really wanted to really redefine the way people worked in their productive office environment. Infinite screens, but you know, I should have a augmented calendar that I can place on the wall. Like you said, it should be always there, and the anchoring should always be present when I put on my headset. That way I can even customize my calendar with maybe family photos, maybe on my desk. Whenever I look down on the desk, it's a tabletop, and maybe I can play Diablo on it.
Yeah, you got your little pet, all the fun stuff.
Yeah, exactly, all the fun stuff, and I think that's where.
It's a huge undertaking though, and it's like you're basically saying we need to create a new operating system that's spatial, that's got all of this software. Like, who's making that? That's huge. That's like, if not even Microsoft does that. Like, Microsoft makes the operating system and like some productivity software, and that's it. But like, I don't know, man. Like, if anyone can do it, it's Apple. Meta should be able to do it. They have the money. They just don't have the vision, which is hilarious that Apple called their headset the Vision Pro. But I think that's what they're lacking, is yeah, actual vision. There's no visionaries at Meta. There's no, like, they've all left. They're it's depressing. I mean, I guess Zuckerberg thinks of himself as a visionary, or like he'd like people to think of him as a visionary, but he's not. I mean, I don't know. I'm not trying to insult the guy. I don't know him, but it's like, he's not. He's no Steve Jobs. He's not a John Carmack. He's not like even Palmer Luckey. He's not. We need these kind of like visionary people and they need to have enough power to put the money in the right places and get things rolling. And I think it looks like Tim Cook's got it under control. I wish there were other options. It's funny, people are like, oh, this is good. It's good to have competition in the space or whatever. I'm like, I don't think it's a competition. I think it's just like the big boys just said, okay, we'll give it a shot, and we'll see what comes of it.
Yeah, I think Apple had to make some type of announcement. I mean, I'm sure we all heard the rumors that they were going to announce it at this WWDC, but they waited an hour because they did a great job of creating that anxiety again. But I also think they just had to announce it because the developers have been asking it for a long time, and also this was kind of a hallmark year where Oculus did sell 20 million headsets, and that's usually the magic word in terms of units sold to get to mainstream adoption. Every time we're talking about console, 10 million, 20 million, that's when we get to where developers are making money. You've seen it all at this point. What do you think Apple needs to do to make good with, like yourself, an original OG XR developer, to get this community excited? And it may be as easy as that, like yourself, you may feel disgruntled about what Meta has been doing. So your response may be, well, just don't do that. But if you're speaking with Apple now, what do you think is important for Apple to understand to get the existing XR community, where there's a lot of them? We have 20 million headsets sold just on one platform. How do they get developers like yourself involved?
I think they've already done the right thing. I think the reason they announced now, which is early for them, right? Considering it's not even out until next year, and like you said, it's sort of a dev kit. That I think they did it to save the industry. Like, they saw, they're like, oh, everything looks so bad right now that if we don't announce it, like, it's going to be dead by the end of the year. Like, any sort of hype, which is something else we've been discussing in the Mafia, is like, we got a year until the Quest 3 launches. Quest Pro flopped. Like, a year is a long time to, they're not selling Quest 2s at a good rate anymore. And like, to push back on that 20 million number, like, that's nowhere near the like monthly active users. Like, I would say 90% of those headsets are in a closet or a landfill at this point. It's not, I don't know about 90%, but it's like, there's not 20 million active users, like, not even close. So what was the question? Oh, yeah. No. Also, I want to say that I'm not disgruntled toward Meta. I'm just sort of pointing out the obvious. It's like I said, all of that stuff builds up to the industry looks like it's dying to developers for the last few months. So Apple coming in and saying, like, wait, one more thing, like, check this out. That's huge for us. And like, I don't know about getting people on board to make stuff, but I think we'll make stuff if it's good. It's like, if it's a good fit. It's like, a lot of people moved over to Quest development when PC VR kind of got pushed aside, and the same thing will happen with the Apple headsets. Like, yeah, if you build it, they will come. It's not you shouldn't have to do anything special to, like. I know people will disagree with me. Like, people like, some of the older, even Canadian VR developers are like, well, like, why aren't they getting us involved with it? And it's like, well, that's not like, because it's not what we're doing, right? It's not. It's a new thing. So we'll see when it comes along. You know.
What do you think about Apple, announcing that pre-existing 2D apps, or whether for iPad or iPhone, they'll be compatible with the Apple Vision Pro? What do you think that means for developers? What do you think would be interesting to explore as a developer, considering that you can port your existing 2D apps from iPad or iPhone? What does that what does a creative spark in you tell you about what developers can do with that technology?
I don't think it's about, like, it doesn't inspire me creatively, but I think it's the right move again for, like, just user experience and utility, right? Like, if I can just automatically use everything, like, it's already there, It's like what I was just complaining about not even having Facebook on the stupid Facebook headset. Like, what? Like, it makes no sense, like, to have a complete lack of utility. So giving you everything out of the box is amazing, and I think I I can't really predict what that means. Like, it's like predicting. You can't predict any of this stuff. It's like the number one game on Quest is Gorilla Tag. Like, who would predict that? Or, like, the number one app on the App Store was Flappy Bird. It's like, I don't know what that's going to mean. I don't know what a good 2D spatial app is until I see it. Like, right now, I think it's Netflix over the dishes, and like, Twitter over here where I don't have a monitor.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, yeah, things like that. It's, I think, yeah, that's got to be it. Like, I have, generally, when I work, I have YouTube up, and I'm basically just using it as podcast service, right? Like, I go through my subs and I line them all up in a queue, and I just have them play while I'm working. And that's 2D spatial, sort of, right? It's over here while I'm working here. So I think it's probably going to be something like that. So, like, what they're doing is the right move. It's it's bizarre because, like, Meta announced partnerships with these sort of things early on. There was a Netflix thing. There was something else. But,
Well,
like,
at that
Netflix.
time, next VR, before they got acquired by Apple, they're really big in 360 video. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of innovative stuff, and at the time, as an industry, or at least us in backroom chatter, was like, well, it's because the hardware's not ready yet, but it will be, but the software's there, and now it's like, well, the hardware still isn't there yet. Like, I think hand tracking has gone, has been dynamite, in terms of what you're able to do, and I think that was the biggest talk of the reviews of the Apple Vision, is that, hey, wow, the hand tracking actually works. And then, I worked at Leap Motion doing hand tracking. Like, it's tough doing good hand tracking, especially with you need a lot of power, and the cameras just need to pick up on things when things can get occluded. Fingers are weird, but from the
I think
reviews,
their lazy mode that they showed is, like, brilliant. Also, like, I've been saying this since the announcement of motion controllers with the Steam motion controller. I'm like, that's not necessarily it. I mean, that's cool, but most people just want to sit there in their chair, and, like, this is the most motion they want to do. A little bit of, like, I'm working. It's like the same with the mouse and keyboard. Like I don't know if you can see this. Like my mouse has all these macro buttons on the side, and I've got
Mm-hmm.
them all set up so that I
Mm-hmm.
can just be the laziest in the world. I can just lay back here and like I got copy, paste, delete my email addresses back and forward. So like that's the ultimate, man. I don't have to
Mm.
like stand up and do this to get anything done. Nobody does. Like sure to play Beat Saber if that's your thing, and that's why like these fitness apps are big on the VR headsets because it's like okay, well it feels like fitness even when I'm doing something mundane. So
Mm.
let's make it a fitness app. But I think, yeah, like doing this, like I wouldn't even call that hand tracking. Like you're like that's pretty
Finger
easy, right?
tracking. Yeah, yeah.
People done that with a leap. Like it's not like you're occluding anything, or like whatever. This, and like that. I think it's brilliant. I think like I said, it's visionary. It's like somebody there is thinking about this stuff, like thinking hard and like thinking about the actual use case and the actual user experience, not just like I don't know. And like I think the hardware is there. Like I'm gonna disagree with you there. Like the hardware I think has been there for a long time. Like Leap Motion could have done like this and this. Like what the problem was this and this. But like why are you doing that? Like you got to think about the why. Like why is that important? So
That's a great point. I think what you're saying is like, hey, like Leap Motion, the capabilities were great, but the experience that where people were designing, it just left room for error. And I think that's really where, Apple comes in really strong, considering that they're very good on the foundational stuff like Swift
mhm,
OS, human interface guidelines, laying down what is needed or best experience or best practice is what I'm trying to say. I think that's what
mhm.
you're communicating as well.
I think what they're doing is like thinking about the user first rather than what the hardware can do. Like who cares what the hardware can do? Can it make this easy? Like that, like I don't know. I think that's the important part, and I think that's what they're showing that they're trying to nail. Yeah, I don't know. I'd have to put some more thought into what what I actually mean by that. But like, yeah, like I said, I think the software has been or the hardware has been there for a while. Like the pass through doesn't need to be amazing as long as it can track simple things like that. And I'm not blind. I think the pass through needs to be good enough that I can read my phone and my monitors. I think once it gets there, that's fine. We've got it. But yeah, as far as hand tracking and stuff, we've been there for a long time. As far as like the resolution of the virtual world, I think that's been fine since like I played I played Skyrim on a DK2. No, DK1. I think I played on the DK1, which was like nothing. It was like 720 by something, right? So it was super low res. But you don't care if the experience is there, right? And the experience of Skyrim was already there. But like just being able to interact with it, I don't care. Like after about 3 seconds, you don't care that it's pixely, as long as the user experience is there, right? So yeah, we're gonna stop thinking that the next hardware iteration is gonna be the thing that pushes it. It's not. It's the next like leap in ease of use and kind of user experience, right? And that's been ignored for some reason. I don't know why. It's like that should be the number one thing. Is like, okay, hardware is cool and everything, but like, what is actually happening? What am I doing with this thing? You
Mm.
know?
Do you think that's also the reason for our latecomer advantage? Like looking at like all the faults that why people aren't adopting. I think Apple, what they did really great is like, hey, we're gonna have an input that makes sense for humans, hand tracking.
Mm-hmm.
I've worked on different VR headsets in my career now, and
Mm-hmm.
always when I try to get feedback on why people don't want to wear it, there's two things. One is that it isolates you from the world; it's a bad user experience. And two, you kind of look like a cyborg, right? Having your eyes closed off from the real world. So Apple really addressed those things just with eyesight, having your real face mapped out onto the screen, so
Mm-hmm.
you don't look so weird, or people don't know where your eyes are at if you're in a headset.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, the user experience of using hands. But if they still haven't answered what you mentioned in the beginning, what about games? You're going to need a controller for that. You don't want to get gorilla arm just keeping your hands up like that.
But do you? I don't know. Like we thought you wouldn't be able to do games on a like a
True.
touchscreen,
On
right?
touchscreen,
And
yeah.
and like I said, that's hard to predict. I didn't, who knew that you could do virtual controls? Like my daughter plays like Roblox and Minecraft, like as if the iPad's a controller,
Yeah,
and
true.
it's fine. But also like swipe games, like n- nobody could have said when they made the touchscreen for the iPhone, like what the games were going to be, or like what, like we have to wait, right? It doesn't mean
Yeah.
there's going to be no games. It means like they're going to be something different, which is fine, I think. Yeah, my issue is I don't think it's that they're like they have an advantage for being latecomers. I think it's actually just like they thought about it. It's like I don't think Meta, like I said, I don't think they have a direct vision. It's kind of like they're just like, okay, well, what's happening in 6 months? What's happening? Like what's the next quick thing? What, like, what's 6 months from now? And it's like they're not thinking broadly. Like, no, let's step back and look at this thing and see what we need to do. And I think that's what Apple did. And like, I guess they could do that, but it's not like they don't have a million other pieces of hardware that they have to worry about. Like Meta doesn't. They should be able to really like focus on this stuff and figure it out. And I don't know why they're not. I don't. And like again, I'm not like disgruntled. I don't feel like my Quest Pro is great. It's the best VR headset I have right now. Oh no, I don't know. I don't know. Anyway, but it's just I don't think people discuss the actual issues enough. Like what, uh, and they've kind of been the main player in the game, and I think this announcement of the Vision Pro kind of put it all into perspective. Like, oh, this is what it should be. So why haven't you been doing this? Like, or even heading toward that. Like they're starting to do the mixed reality stuff. In Quest 3 we'll have the pass through and a better pass through, but they're losing eye tracking and losing face tracking, and it's like, and there's no, you're not going to be able to see the person's eyes, and it's like, well, why isn't anyone thinking about this stuff? You know, like they did it. Like these conversations have to be happening at Meta right now. Like somebody's getting smacked up the side of the head. Like, hey, dummy, why didn't you think of it? but it's. I feel like if you polled developers and people in the space, they would have told you these things. But again, it has to be like actual. It's not even visionaries. It's just people who take it seriously. It's not just like I'm making a fun little game for it. It's like people who are kind of thinking about what the future of these platforms is. And I don't know who they hired at Apple to do this stuff. I mean, I'm sure Tim Cook's going to take the credit, but I feel like, yeah, Meta needs whoever they have kind of directing things.
Well, I think culturally, Apple has just always led by a singular vision, like a personality, like a Steve Jobs, and of course Tim Cook, and there's a whole bunch of other people that are on that side that are actually following that same cultural aspect of building technology. But at my time at Meta, John Carmack was that leadership for a lot of people internally. Like we respected him. He came from the industry.
That's why he left, though, because nobody was listening to him, right? Like he had the vision, he didn't have the power, and it's like, if you're Mark Zuckerberg and you're not handing over the reins of your tech to the visionary, like that's your problem. You messed up. Like,
But going back to Apple, like you're not building for Apple. Lo-Fi looks fantastic. You've already got a lot of buzz with the indie, VR community of they want this game. What's it going to take for Apple for you to pay attention to then start saying, "Hey, I might start developing"? I mean, they are going to have their developer centers where every major metropolitan hub is going to have these dev kits available for developers. I mean, is that the first entry just to get you involved? Is like inviting you to some of these programs? What from a tools and SDK perspective are you expecting? We already talked about the user experience and about their spatial guidelines. What are the top 3 things for Blair to bring Lo-Fi to Apple?
well, Lo-Fi will not come to Apple, but there's no reason that I wouldn't bring something to it, but it's like that tweet. It's like I don't know what to say. I need to do, like, what's the thing, like I know what the hardware is, but I need a platform where I can know what I'm doing, so yes, I need to try it. I need to find out like what their plan is. Can I make I don't know, like Second Life, like make lo-fi meta objects for people to buy, or like I don't know what they're doing. I'm not gonna try and make a hand tracked game like I'm making. Well, like lo-fi isn't hand tracked, right? It's either controller or hand controllers. But like I'm happy with what I have right now. Like next gen VR is next gen VR. PC. I know PC VR is dead. PlayStation 2 or PlayStation VR 2. Did you hear my cat?
Yeah, it's time for dinner.
Yeah. It yeah, it's good. Like they figured that out. So I'm doing that for this. I don't think the evolution of like next gen, like just pure VR is done. The Vision Pro is a different thing, and I'm happy to develop for it if I can figure out what that means. Like I know what the Quest 2 is. I'm not developing for it just because I'm busy doing next gen VR and it's not going to work. But like, there's no reason I wouldn't. Like I have a pitch in that they accepted for like a spin-off of Lo-Fi for Quest with mixed reality stuff, but I'm too busy with Diablo right now. No, I mean
playing.
Yeah. But yeah, I just need to know what I'm developing. It's like I'm obviously not going to make a fully immersive 3D world for Vision Pro, but hopefully they have something for me to make for it, and I'd love to. So.
I think that's a great way to end, and I think the cat is hungry. Blair, you're a great friend, and I'm very grateful to have known you and be on this journey with you. And
oh my God, that sounds like a eulogy. I'll see you again soon. See you, GDC at AWE. It's weird.
I know. Well, we'll have to make a personal stop and figure that out. Yeah. But Blair, thank you so much, man. For one last closing words, if you were to give some people may be new to XR development, they may be developers, working at a tech company, but they're interested in XR. They may be interested in all the recent news at Apple. What are 3 things that you want to give as advice for developers new into this field?
Well, I think that the piece of advice is that kind of in line with that Kanye quote. Like if you're not in it for your, like, if you're just going into it for money, first of all, as an indie, that's a terrible idea. Don't do that. But like, if you don't have some sort of vision, don't do it either. I mean, these are like negative things. But if you do, like, if you're passionate about it and you want to see like your vision in some sort of like, it's a new medium, right? It's like if you're an artist, art, like this is a great new medium for art. If you're interested in the hardware side or whatever, do it, but don't do it for the wrong reasons. I think that's my main piece of advice, because I've seen a lot of that. I've seen a lot of people getting into it because it was like the thing at the time, right? And then realizing like, oh, there's no money here. This is like, I just mortgaged my house and tried to make a crappy like VR thing because I thought it was the next thing, and now I'm poor and disgruntled.
Right.
I'm not describing myself, by the way. I'm doing fine. But yeah, is that two other things? Like, I think if you're not already a developer, I think just go for it. Get like grab like a free version of Unity or Unreal or whatever, and it's like learning any sort of new software. You gotta download the free stuff, the free projects, get in there, pull it apart, smash things together, like break it and like figure it out. That's the way to do it. I mean, that's the way I do it. I didn't even know Unity and Unreal were a thing before I started with VR. I'm old school. We had to make our own engines back in the day.
That's right.
And third thing, I don't know. Be cool.
I like that one.
Yeah, be cool.
Blair, that was awesome. Thank you so much for being on the first episode of season 2 of the VR Report, and I appreciate you.
Problem. Yeah,
Thanks
thanks
brother.
for having me. All right.
I'm gonna end this session, and then I want to talk to you for a couple of things.
Okay, sure.